I recently hosted a webinar for a top-tier French business school about burnout. And at the end of the presentation, one of the participants asked me, "Hey, Wafa, so I'm burnt out right now, but what do I do now? What's my checklist to exit burnout? What are the steps to take to exit the state and get back to my normal life?" Hey, I'm Wafa, an ex-investment banker turned career wellness coach and speaker. If you haven't been here before on this channel, I like talking about career fulfillment, burnout prevention, self-care, and anything related to wellness. So if those topics sound good to you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel not to miss any further updates. A few weeks ago, I released a video that explains the different phases of burnout. Burnout symptoms are much more progressive. It's a very slow process. And so the earlier you notice that there's something a little bit off and different about you, the quicker you can start taking action. Whether you feel like you're just experiencing symptoms of burnout or you've been feeling them for quite a while now and you feel like they're pretty installed. In both cases, it's really important to have a plug-in strategy to help you understand what are the important steps to take to heal, recover, and move on. For those of you who stay until the end of the video, they'll receive my Beat Burnout Exit Checklist. So stay tuned until the end of the video to get it. In part 1, I'll talk about the action steps to complete when feeling burnt out. And in part 2, I'll talk about what to do once you're recovered to prevent falling back into burnout. Please note that the only person allowed to diagnose, treat, and advise you on your health, including issues of burnout, is a licensed doctor. Throughout this video, I'll be using terms such as relapse, heal, or recovery just to help you, the viewer, understand the steps to creating more positive change in your life and entice you to take positive action. Content in this video is absolutely not intended to serve as medical or therapeutic advice. It's just for informational purposes. When you feel burnt out, it's up to a doctor to officially diagnose you with burnout or something else. So the first step is to obviously go and consult with a doctor. The approach can either be proactive or reactive. It's proactive if after noticing that your stress levels were too high for a while, or changes with your mood, or changes in your health have been going on for a little while, you're the one who decided to go and check with a doctor. So you're proactive, which means that you didn't wait until it impacted your health or the way you function too much to force you. And that's the reactive approach. It's when you're forced because you cannot function anymore, you cannot perform at work, you became too aggressive or too negligent at work, or you're behaving a little off with your loved ones and your private life. So that's when it's reactive. It's when your health, whether mental or physical and circumstances, force you to go to the doctor. So we obviously want to be as proactive as we want to prevent harder and more severe cases of burnout. So that's why step number 1, no matter what, as soon as you feel like your behavior and the way you feel is a little off, go check in with your doctor to get diagnosed or not. And so there are 2 levels of this. First thing is to consult with your local family or a doctor that you're familiar with. That's the easier step because it's somebody that may know you for a while, that you're comfortable with. And even if it's not a doctor that you know because you like switching doctors often, or because you've moved cities and that's a new doctor, at least you're the one who chose that doctor. And so it's still a little bit of a comfort zone. It's a casual conversation. There's no stakes except you going into that medical office and having a doctor assess, your level of health. In other words, your boss and your team and the company you work at don't need to know anything about it. And so that doctor, because they're a licensed practitioner, are able to diagnose you, treat you, and also prescribe you with 2 weeks off, if not more. And so usually the way it would happen is if they assess that you would need time off from work, for example, due to burnout, they would write you a prescription that says this person cannot go to work for the next 2 weeks, and you'll be able to present that proof to your employer and then stay home for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, they would renew that sick leave after a follow-up consultation. The thing is, getting a sick leave from the doctor of your choice can raise eyebrows within your team/company. A 2-week sick leave may or may not sound too long, but if it needs to be renewed, that's starting to be an issue because your team really may start wondering, why is he or she off for more than 2 weeks? Is it a lie? Is it a fake certificate? Does he or she know their doctor and their, like, the company just doesn't know that doctor. They didn't pick him or her. They don't know what's going on. That's why that strategy is limited. And so that's why in step number 2, it's really important to go to occupational medicine, which basically is a doctor that works with that company, that is there to be between you and the company, and they have their own processes to assess whether you're burnt out or not, or under a lot of stress or not, and if your medical condition warrants a sick leave or not. And the sick leave that occupational medicine doctor may prescribe you has sort of a bigger weight in the eyes of your employer because it's occupational medicine. If they say this employee cannot work anymore for a given amount of time, you will be off, and nobody's going to question it because that occupational medicine doctor said so, period. And then they may first start by prescribing 2 weeks off. But if your state, of burnout or work stress or anything else that may happen with your health is more severe, they may choose to say, hold on, this employee is completely burnt out or is inapt, is incapable of going to work anymore. They need to be off for 1 month, if not 6 months. So once again, that occupational medicine doctor really is able to provide with irrefutable, tangible proof that you're not able to work anymore due to burnout and your medical condition. And that is extremely important above just making sure your team doesn't doubt what's going on. It's also so that you're protected and you're still paid. And depending on your country, typically employees who are on sick leave can still be paid, especially if they have been diagnosed by an occupational medicine doctor. So that's why it's so important, if you want to really have workers' regulation and protection on your side, go and check in with the occupational medicine. And finally, on the medical track, it's also important to consult with a therapist or a psychologist. Same thing here, you can choose one of your own, but if you feel like you're really burnt out and you have other mental disorders that may or may not be caused by your workplace, then it's also good to see and ask that occupational medicine doctor to also help you book an appointment with occupational medicine therapists so that they can fully run a whole battery of psychological assessments alongside with the medical general check. The second step is to communicate with HR and with your boss/manager. Bring the issue that you've been experiencing at work with them and show proof that you need to be on sick leave. And then it's important for them to really clarify that they've understood, that they accept, or that they understand, or that they just acknowledge the amount of weeks that you'll be off work. It's important to discuss staffing as well. Just understand that you won't be here to complete your to-do list. Understand for how many weeks you'll be off, and just have an open dialogue to make sure that everything is transparent and that they're not caught off guard. And if your doctor has simply ordered you to be cautious and to really keep track on your health for the next weeks without giving you any sick notice for the time being, then it's good to also raise it with HR or perhaps your manager and ask about evolution in staffing, maybe lighten up the load a little bit. Obviously, you want to initiate a dialogue with your team as soon as possible and be able to confide with them and share as soon as you feel a little bit tired or you need time off. You want to be able to share that with them without waiting, on the spot. But unfortunately, in some teams, opening up may make you a vulnerable target to criticism or to other intimidation techniques, or they may fire you for another reason, or anything can happen. So that's why it was wiser to put in step 1 going to see your doctor, so that the first step is to just do it on your own. Go and see occupational medicine doctor. They don't need to report first with your team. You do that so that you can really have this objective goal of checking in with your health, having the expert opinion of a doctor before you decide the course of action on your work, before you drop everything that you've been doing at work. The third step is legal help. Not everybody needs to check in with a lawyer, but it's always invaluable to get the expert opinion of a lawyer on your situation to make sure that you know everything there is to know about your rights as an employee. You just want at least an initial consultation with a lawyer so that they can support you and reassure you on all the questions you may have, because typically when people are burnt out, they're very isolated. You know, the doctor puts them on sick leave, it's awkward to talk to the company, and when they finally gathered the courage to share the news with the company, sometimes, you know, the team, the boss, the HR are not really happy. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of resentment and frustration on both ends, and it's just a mess sometimes. That's why it's important to check in with a qualified lawyer then, so that they can really advise you on every steps to take to stay within your rights, to keep being protected as an employee, and also arrange, you know, the coming back conditions into that workplace. And if you choose not to come back, negotiate and terminate your employment within that company. In some other extreme cases, a particular employee may choose to sue their employer because they deem that their burnout was due to the stressful or extremely uncomfortable and harsh working conditions that they had to endure in that workplace. Okay, step number 4. After you've checked in with a doctor, had a conversation with your team, and sought legal support, you're burnt out, you're on sick leave. Now it's time to surround yourself with good vibes only. GVO. When an employee is burnt out, as I said, they're vulnerable, they're isolated, they're exhausted. The last thing they need is people judging their choice. They don't need haters. Surround yourself, immerse yourself in a nurturing environment, because all of your energy resources are depleted then, so you want to recharge yourself on every possible level. Surround yourself with positive and supportive people you can open up to. Surround yourself with friends and family members that really respect you and can also help you. They can support you either by listening to you, by providing for you, by providing shelter or food or finances if you need. Anything basically you need. Perhaps it is somebody that's going to be cooking for you, or somebody that's going to host you in their home, like a parent or a family member. Perhaps it's a best friend that will come to check in on you every weekend just to give you moral support. All in all, just pick them wisely and get rid of any toxic energy. Step number 5 is to seek support and coaching. Throughout the whole burnout, from the diagnosis to finally being on sick leave, there's a lot of time that can pass by. And even during sick leave, there's a lot of time that can, you know, pass by. That period can really last anything from 2 weeks to 6 months, if not double that. Why? Because burnout is really an exhaustion syndrome. And so when someone is exhausted, it really takes them time to rest and recharge and also heal from that traumatic experience. Nobody wants to rush that process. So, by the way, take your time in resting, taking care of yourself. Do not put yourself in the rush of getting back to work 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months, absolutely, you know, after burning out and being on sick leave. But once you've recovered and you're now ready to move forward and start thinking about going back to a normal life, going back to work, seeking professional coaching support is extremely important, because it really helps clients accelerate that getting back on track phase. It helps clients, you know, reassess their life priorities. It helps them re-understand who they are and how they've evolved as an individual and a professional. It helps them reassess what they want in a career and what they don't want anymore. It helps them boost their self-esteem and self-confidence levels. It really helps them go back to being an even better version than the person they were when they were at their highest, you know, in the past. So really get back to their best selves. And so coaching is incredible for that, because it's action oriented. You know, it addresses the root cause of what blocks you to get back on track, but on top of that, It infuses a lot of action-based tools that really helps clients draft a clear and simple and personalized strategy to move forward and forget about the past. And it's important to mention that because the medical and the therapy have been addressed in step 1. So you had a good chunk of your sick leave dedicated to a doctor and therapy, if you know that was applicable to you. And whenever you feel like you're ready to take action on getting your life back together and getting your work life back together, that's when you know that you're ready for coaching. And there's also no problem in doing therapy and coaching both at the same time. They work incredibly well together. I've personally worked with a lot of clients that were going through a burnout or coming out of a burnout sick leave while they were seeing a psychologist or a therapist, and the takeaways from each session were incredibly powerful together and really complemented each other. So definitely think about coaching. Obviously pick a coach that really you feel comfortable with and that resonates with you and you feel like that can really help you take leaps forward. Obviously that's one of my specialties, and you can check my website to know more about how I work and my references, but there's a lot of other coaches out there, so it's really about finding the right fit for you. Part 2. Now it's time to talk about my top tips to avoid falling back into burnout. A lot of people who typically have experienced burnout once tend to want to rush back to getting back to work and rush back to getting back to a normal life. And there's no judgment, you know, it's understandable. Some people, they need to pay the bills, and so even if the doctor said, okay, let's put you on a 6-month sick leave, after 6 months, they need to go back to work to earn an income again. And for other people, they can benefit from longer extended sick leaves because they still are paid by the company, or they have savings, or they're very privileged. So, you know, to each their own situation. All in all, the aim after experiencing one burnout is to never experience it again. So in this part, all the steps that I will be discussing will be mirroring the ones discussed in part 1. First, keep going to your doctor. So even if your doctor told you that you're now fully recovered and you have healed and you can now go back to work, it doesn't mean that you need to say sayonara to that doctor and never see him again, plunge back into work, stay late at night, skip meals, yada yada yada. No. Stay consistent with all the tips and advice and the treatments that your doctor provided you with. Stay really consistent and follow through them. Also get in the habit of booking regular consultations with your doctor just to make sure that you monitor your health and you're more mindful of how you're feeling in general. Especially once you've burnt out, it's really important to learn as much as you can about your mental health, how to set boundaries with others, really understand your behavioral patterns, your emotional patterns, etc., so that you can efficiently protect yourself and monitor your mental health going forward. So really stay consistent with your therapy session or your sessions with your psychologist. And finally, I would say develop a more mindful, healthy living habits, whether it's eating healthy, hydrating, moving your body, soaking up some sun, and sleeping enough hours. It's really important. I'm not saying be perfect, I'm saying be more mindful of how you used to treat your body, mind, body, and spirit, so that your, you know, batteries, your energy batteries will be charged at all times, or at least more charged than they used to, so that you're at lesser risk of falling back into burnout again. Step number 2. It's important that you derive the lessons from the first burnout you've experienced, hopefully the last. Derive the important lessons from it. What have you learned from it? What I mean by that is to understand what is it that worked for you in the past, in the workplace, and what didn't. You want to really be clear about the things that you're no longer willing to accept and the things you think you deserve going forward. Chances are your burnt out was triggered by not feeling recognized and worthy and respected enough at the workplace. Perhaps it was because you were overworked, because the team was understaffed. And so it's important that you identify what were those deep-rooted causes for your exhaustion, for that professional exhaustion, so that you will be less likely to repeat those patterns going forward. Identify what was toxic to you in your previous workplace, what was essential, what was not essential, so that whether you choose to go back to the same team or in company, or you choose to switch, you will know now what to ask for. If you choose to stay within the same company, knowing what you want and don't want and having clarity around that will help you have a conversation with your manager and perhaps bring some changes to your role by changing the staffing, the types of clients you were working with, or the amount of work you had. And if you choose to change companies, it's important to understand and have clarity on what you want and don't want, so that you can get into interviews knowing what you want and not want. That's going to also help you sift through all the job offers out there. Step number 3 is to pay attention to the things that are present in your next contract. Whether you choose to stay in the same company or change companies, because of that experience and perhaps based on the conversations you've had with a lawyer, you will know now that depending on the company, depending on if there's a work union in place, depending on the country you work in, the sick leave conditions and employee protection laws are different. And so you want to pay attention to that. Perhaps also the number of days / weeks, for holidays are not the same from one company / one country to another. So you just really want to take into account all of that to make sure that next time you get into a new job, you're aware and you're prepared for every situation and you have the most benefits on your side. This is something you can directly ask a lawyer. So the first time you consult with a lawyer during your sick leave, this is also a question you can ask proactively so that you're prepared for going back to work. That's why it's extremely valuable to at least have one consultation with a lawyer when you prepare or to go on sick leave or when you're already on sick leave, just so that you can ask all of those general questions. Step number 4 is to surround yourself with an even bigger positive circle of people. Once you've officially recovered from burnout and went back to work, it's important to burst that bubble and to expand the size of that positive circle around you. So still regularly meet with your friends or have conversations and open up about how you feel, what's going on at work. Just find people that you can trust and that you can confide in. They can be peers, friends, or family, or professional help like therapists and coaches. The most important thing is that you open up about how you feel, about your experience, about what's going on. And these people will be able to see your patterns, especially those who knew you back when you did a burnout and know you now. They will be able to see the difference in your behavior and your mood and how you carry yourself. And those people will be incredibly important in noticing early signs of a second burnout if it were to happen, or signs of you living your best life and never dipping back into burnout again. So surround yourself with positive people, stay away from negative energy. And finally, working with a coach can be invaluable even when you got back to the office. A coach can help you step a foot back into the workplace confidently and assertively, especially the first 90 days, to make sure that you're properly integrated into the team and that you're doing all the right things to carry yourself well, set the right boundaries, and to just start fresh and not to repeat patterns from the past. The second thing is that with a coach, you're able to set appropriate patterns and healthy behavioral patterns in place to make sure that you see yourself in a positive way, you build your confidence every day, you develop healthier habits, you develop a healthy work-life balance, healthy emotional practices. Another important thing that coaching is able to provide you with is the invaluable accountability, because a coach also does act like a mirror in supporting you, but also reflecting back your evolution and your growth and your progress. And so having that mirror is a great check-in just to make sure, am I growing? In which direction? How have I evolved and grown since my last burnout, since I'm back to the office? And just to see which direction you're going towards, just so that you know where you are, And so working with a coach helps you bring awareness to your patterns and helps you step back into work with confidence and the right habits. Now that you have a complete step-by-step checklist, here's what you need to know. Number one, as I said, burnout completely depletes one's battery levels. And so it's really important to not put pressure on yourself to tick off every box of this checklist. For some people, it may take 2 weeks to recover. For some people, it may take 6 months up to a year. It's totally fine, and sometimes even more. So do not pressurize yourself to recover and get back to work ASAP. The most important thing is that you give yourself grace and you rest and you heal from that workplace trauma that happened. And whenever you're ready, in your own time, in your own pace, you take this checklist and start ticking the box, one after the other. Every single step that you're taking forward is a big leap forward, so do not judge yourself for not going fast enough or doing enough. You are enough. So really accept that the process can be slow and that you don't have to be perfect. It's important to re-educate yourself on giving yourself grace and, taking one step after the other, because those are the patterns that have led you to burnout in the first place, is to constantly, spread yourself too thin. So slow progress is a real progress. There is no badge of honor of rushing the process and then falling back into burnouts 6 months, 1 year, 5 years down the line. Also seek as much support as you can. There is no shame in that game. When someone is burnt out, they really need a lot of love, a lot of support, a lot of acceptance, and a lot of good vibes. Lingering alone in negative energy and resentment and guilt and all those uncomfortable emotions is not helping you and is not helping you move forward your situation. So you really want to ask for help so that you can heal and process all of those harsh emotions and move forward. Accepting to focus on your healing process, accepting that it can go slow, accepting to ask for help can really help you heal fast and let go of a traumatic experience and help you move forward whenever you're ready. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was extremely useful to you. I hope you feel warm and fuzzy inside after watching it. There's no taboo about burnout. It can happen to anybody, and I hope you'll find a lot of value in this checklist. Speaking of checklist, feel free to download that checklist in the link down below and print it. And just save it. If you need it now, use it. And if you don't, just save it, because you never know. And also feel free to share this video and this checklist with someone that you care about that may be in burnout, to help them, know what to do, care for themselves, let go of that traumatic experience, and move forward in a healthy way. I hope you've enjoyed this video at least a little bit, and if you did, make sure to give it a good like and subscribe to my little growing channel. It will make my day. Also, stay tuned for next week's video, in which I will talk about the do's and don'ts to keep high performance, to keep good energy and good focus at work. So stay tuned for that. See you then. Bye.